I've got a question for you. If you have a child that's going to school at the moment, do they feel more comfortable going to school in their sport uniform or their traditional uniform? I just know anecdotally from my own daughter, Sophia, she loves days when she has PE because she gets to slip on the T-shirt and the tracky dacks and she bounces out of the home. When she has a more formal uniform to wear, she feels uncomfortable. Sometimes she feels, I don't know, this is a lot more complaints. So I was really interested when I read an article in The Conversation today that said many students across Australia would prefer to wear sport uniforms to school. And a lot of analysis seems to back that up. You might be a teacher or a parent, or maybe you're a school kid yourself, and you might want to join in on this discussion. Should sport uniforms be compulsory every day? 1300 222 891. Matthew Mclaughlin is a PhD candidate at the School of Medicine and Public Health at the University of Newcastle. He joins me. G'day, Matthew.
Hey, how are you doing, Jules?
Good. So what are the reasons, do you think, sport uniforms should be, every day of the week?
Well, very quickly, we've brought together 4 of them. We think they're expensive. We think they're uncomfortable. They don't necessarily support the kids to be active during recess and lunchtime. And the big one, really, which is that teachers, parents and students don't really support the traditional school uniforms anymore.
I mean, I understand parents and kids, but how do you know that teachers don't support traditional school uniforms, Matthew? I mean, what percentages are we talking about here?
Yeah, so we reached out to parents in a big survey and asked them what they thought about the school uniforms. And 4 in 5 of the parents think that the traditional a move towards wearing the sports uniform every day would be a better thing than having a traditional school uniform on 4 days a week and then the sport uniform on only 1 day a week. Because for us, as physical activity researchers, we want the kids to be active on every day of the week.
Also, I guess parents would like it because uniforms are expensive. The traditional uniforms are always more expensive than the sport uniforms. And the fact is that you have to buy a couple of different uniforms makes it more expensive still, Matthew.
That's right, yeah. The average cost of a secondary school uniform can be upwards of $500. So it's quite significant costs, but the savings of just focusing on a sports-based uniform, you can get the cost down of the uniform to just less than $200, which is a big saving to Australian families out there. But we know that the parents support this. 9 in 10 parents want a move that would support the students to be active at school.
Wouldn't the counter-argument be that uniforms teach kids that they need to follow rules and they need good presentation? It helps them become, ready for the adult world, Matthew.
Yeah, and we're not saying that they should drop the school uniform completely. We think that a sports uniform can be smart and it can be well adhered to by the students, and that creates that sense of community that's so important in a school and that sense of discipline. But what this is about is that we know that less than 5% of kids are active enough to meet guidelines for physical activity. That means that they're not getting all of the health benefits they need to get, but also potentially not doing as well in class as they could do if they were a little bit more active.
1300 222 891. Do you think sports uniforms should be worn every day of the week? Let's talk to the president of the SA Secondary Principals Association, Peter Mader, joins me now. Hi, Peter.
G'day, Jules.
Do you agree with Matthew and his colleagues' thesis?
Look, I think Matthew's argument is a strong and compelling one, but that said, I don't necessarily see governing councils, stampeding to change current uniform policy.
Why not?
One of the elephants that's in the room, I think, is the notion of brand recognition. That whether we like it or not, education has become a marketplace, and how a student looks from a particular school is a brand recogniser within the community, and in a sense is actually marketing or advertising the school. And I suspect that most governing councils would therefore take a more traditional view in terms of what it should be with regards to a school uniform.
I mean, we are seeing even private schools adopt the sort of the year 12 kind of rugby top, with advertising there in year 12, and you see kids wear that with pride. So even private schools are moving to become a little bit more informal, Peter. So do you think this will drift in this area slowly, or do you think that there'll be certain schools who'll always promote the formal uniform, as you say, as a kind of a brand value, as advertising?
Yeah, well, look, I certainly agree with Matthew and his colleagues around increasing physical activity. So, if we could get some schools to move in this direction, then trends, can be very powerful. So a really good-looking sports uniform, increased physical activity, we may see a groundswell.
And finally, Peter, because we'll take some calls after the news headlines, but I'd like your opinion on this. This is even more relevant for girls in exercise, isn't it? Because, often the sports uniform for a girl, say in year 11 and 12, is tracksuit pants. And that allows a girl in a secondary school to kick a footy, to climb, to roll around, whereas she's in a dress. It's far more difficult to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a much more contemporary view than sometimes we see in governing councils who are setting these policies.
All right, Peter Mader, thank you for your company. Hopefully Matthew Mclaughlin can stick around to hear your thoughts on his thesis. He and some others have put this up on the conversation today. I thought it was relevant because they did quote some South Australian parents and students in this study. Should sports uniforms be worn every day of the week? 1300 222 891. Your calls after the 4:30 news headlines. What do you think, Wendy Glamourchak? Are you someone who would have preferred to have had a less formal
I went to a public school and we didn't have to wear uniforms. And I hated my sports uniform because we had to wear those pleated little mini skirts.
What, that was your sports uniform?
Yeah, with like a wind cheater.
Surely they weren't designed as mini skirts, or were just girls wearing them?
Like those netball skirts,
Okay, all right.
Yeah. I hated them.
I began a conversation before the news. I was talking to Matthew Mclaughlin. He's from the University of Newcastle. He wrote a thesis on the conversation, an essay saying that, look, it's better for kids, for many students, to wear their sports uniforms every day for school. It supports physical activity, it's cheaper, it's less uncomfortable. There are many reasons why it would be a good thing. So now I'm throwing it over to you on 1300 222 891. We'll find out your view next.
Homeward Bound with Jules Schiller
on ABC Radio Adelaide, South Australia and Broken Hill.
Liesl joins me from Marion on 1300 222 891. Hi, Liesl.
Hi, Jules.
Now, you're in year 12, I'm being told.
That's correct.
Okay, Liesl, so you're just leaving school. I can hear kids behind you.
Yes, it's a very busy bus.
Okay, Liesl, all right. Well, I won't keep you. You're on the bus. What do you think? How popular would it be, a policy of kids wearing sports uniforms every day?
I think it'd actually be very, very popular, since the formal uniforms, as you said, are usually quite uncomfortable. People don't like wearing them, but I think this should be the option, because then you have people like me who actually prefer wearing that formal uniform and feel more comfortable in it. So I think it's just about having that choice.
So you think choice is important. You wouldn't want to do it, but many kids would.
Exactly. Like, there's a place where sports uniforms, you need them for PE. It's better to be active in them. But for me, if you don't have any PE subjects, you do sport as more a formal place of education, then having that formal uniform is probably maybe better for some people.
All right. Thank you, Liesl. That's from a year 12 girl. She thinks choice is the best option. Let's go to Aaron on 1300 222 891. And Aaron, you're a teacher.
Yes, Jules. Thanks for your time this afternoon. I guess really listening to your previous callers, I think it's important to take note of all the stakeholders when you're looking at something like this, and you only have to set a persuasive writing task to primary school kids to see what their opinion is on wearing sports uniform, and inevitably most times you get 90% of them that will say they want to wear sports uniform all the time. And having taught in 3 different systems, primary and high school, and being a father of a number of children myself who go to department schools, the parents sometimes are the ones who appreciate that ability to have that sort of sports uniform, that one uniform that children wear. And typically primary schools are a bit like that, where the kids go and they actually have the same uniform all the way through. So that's kind of sporty in a sense. And, you know, Mr. Mader's comment about the brand recognition is really important as well. But I think if you look at it, if you extend it out to even teachers in our jobs themselves, we have to really work hard in terms of how we present ourselves. But we're asked to do things where, you know, when we're dressed in business attire, we end up with paint all over us and we're crawling around, helping kids on the floor and things like that. So you could extend it out to be a whole school approach, I think, in terms of, you know, the parents have got tons of washing to do. They'd love to maybe have that one uniform. The teachers would love to have that one sporty uniform. And also the students themselves would feel comfortable in something like that. So it could become a different way that we brand it, I think.
So you'd like to see teachers to be able to wear less formal clothes as well, Aaron?
Yeah, I guess really, if you look at the nature of the job, so there's so many different things that you're asked to do in a day that being practically dressed as a business person in a school environment is almost impractical, especially if you're having to chase kids who are a bit unruly. And I've had to see it myself being a PE teacher. I've seen women in high heels and skirts trying to chase after children who have been a bit unruly, and they can't run after them because they're dressed like business people and they're in the school environment.
I've never thought about that, Aaron. Thank you for pointing that out. Never considered that before. Let's go to Athelston and chat to Beverly on uniforms. Hi, Beverly.
Hi, how are you, Jules?
Good. Now,
it's interesting listening to everybody's different opinions on this. Look, I think school uniforms certainly could be modernised. They are quite old-fashioned, and it is expensive having different uniforms for people. But I'm just concerned that if we encourage children to, you know, wander around in tracksuits everywhere, where is it going to end? In 20 years' time, a kid's going to want to roll out of bed and go to school in their dressing gowns because that's more comfortable and convenient.
Thank you, Beverly. Beverly saying it could be a slippery slope. Let's go to the hills and chat to Sharon. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Jules. How are you going?
Good. Now, sports uniforms every day. Matthew has put out an essay today saying, look, it's less expensive, it's more comfortable, it encourages more physical activity. What do you think?
I totally agree with Matthew. I think it's a great idea having something more comfortable. I've got two teenagers in high school and they go to a private school. The socks alone are $10 a pair and they're woolen. And in summer they're sweating, and my daughter's in a pleated skirt that seems very Victorian, and she's not this little lady. She wants, you know, portrayed in sort of modern society. She wants to run around, she wants to climb and be active and do all sorts of things, and it's very prohibitive. I think it would be a great idea to have something more informal, something more relaxed, and it can still be branded and be smart without having to be this sort of pleated skirt and very formal kind of attire.
Thank you, Sharon. Let's go back to Matthew Mclaughlin, where we began with this discussion. He's a PhD candidate at the University of Newcastle. Matthew, I think the calls reflected what you discovered in your survey, that, you know, brand recognition is probably what's holding back an initiative like yours.
Yeah, partly. I think a lot of the things that people are saying were absolutely what we've heard before and really appropriate, you know, taking a balanced approach, making sure that the uniforms are branded, making sure that they're activity permissive and, you know, save a bit of money. But for me, we've seen a few examples of schools already doing this, and we've learned some things already. And one of the things we've learned is that you can still maintain a formal uniform as an option. And you had a student on that was talking about having the choice, and we think that's quite important. But also some schools have gone a slightly different direction and asked the kids to wear sports uniforms every day, but when it comes to a formal occasion, they have a set of formal outfits. You know, say they're meeting a dignitary or something like that, then they lend them out as the school to the particular students that are going to be on that formal excursion. So I think there's a few different ways of doing this, and it's about dressing appropriately for the activity that you're doing. And I think absolutely extending it to the teacher who was dialing in and saying that they also would like to wear activewear, that makes sense too.
Matthew Mclaughlin, it's a fascinating essay that you wrote. You can check out Matthew's work on the Conversation website, and it's got a lot of text on this. I'll get to that very shortly. Thank you for your company, Matthew.